Okay, good morning. A little bit later than expected. But 9 o'clock, nice time. Many of you are there now. I'm going to talk about testing center of excellence. What I basically want to talk about is how to become, you may recognize the pictures here, a player in the testing field, in your test organization, your testers, a player that's able to run in the Champions League. Perhaps even play the finals in the Champions League. So how to have a good testing center? Yesterday, Lee also mentioned testing center of excellence. And he referred to a testing center of excellence as an organization which is put more or less aside of the projects. You might even see an ivory tower. That's not what I mean. What I mean is any type of organization, testing, just being good. How to get better at testing. Test the walk is the theme of this conference, so it's about learning. Learning from other experiences. What do you need to do to become a Champions League organization, or you might say a Champions League player. First of all, what's the market look like? And those of you who were yesterday with Lee's keynote already understood that a lot of things have changed. Business is different, the customers are different, technology is changing. And if you look at the systems that have been around for many, many years already, what you see is typically that the systems we're making today are different than those from 5 years ago, and are different from those of 10 years ago. There's an increase in size, increase in complexity. So some examples. At Philips they are measuring the amount of software in consumer products. TV sets, DVD players, all these things. And the amount of software is currently doubling, think about it, doubling every 2 years. So if you buy a TV set today, it has twice as much software than 2 years ago. Wow, that's a lot. Number of requirements in mobile phones, you might even think, are they still used for making phone calls? It's doubling every 6 months. That's a huge challenge. And all these things still have to work. And there are people at the same time who will be measuring defect density. So how good are our products? As Hatton is doing that. And he measures that over the last 10 years, defect density has hardly decreased. That means we have the same amount of software, the same amount of bugs per so many lines of code. Yet, we're producing so much more code. Think about it. Testing is a requirement. We need to survive, we need good testing. Better testing every day. And by the way, the fact that the defect density is not going down is not meant negative for development. You might say, despite all the technology changes, they still manage to keep it at the same level. It's a lot of challenges, but also time to market, strict deadlines. The customer has changed. He wants quality. And also if you think about testing, testing is a huge resource at major projects. 30–40% is okay. I recently did a job for NXP. We are in the semiconductors world. And now in their products, 50–60% of the resource in the project is spent on testing. Wow. So this is the world we're living in, and this is the world, the challenges we have. So is there a need to improve? Is there a need to become a good tester? Is there a need to be a good test organization? I think there's no other option, personally. There's some Dutch here as well. I'm originally from Holland, Netherlands, and was a piece in a paper that says, software wordt nooit foutloos. What it means is, software will never become defect-free. And this, by the way, is a poster having on the wall from a recent project I was involved in. It was hanging on the wall of the testing. And this is German, so again, the language, it means never give up. And the frog, by the way, is a testing, okay? So how can we improve? What can we do? How can we become a Champions League player? There used to be many people who say, well, that's a solution, easy way out. There is a CMI, or there's TPI next, or there's TMI, so let's invest in a great process. I believe we've learned over the years that's probably not the only way to go. There's a number of directions you should use when trying to improve your testing. Note, I'm not saying trying to improve your testing process, but trying to improve your testing. In addition to process, which I'll come back to later on, there's also people. I'm a strong believer that having good, top-class testers will make a difference. Think about Agile, it says individuals or interactions over tools and process. So it's worthwhile investing in people as one angle of directions of improvements. There's another angle, the infrastructure, having the right tools in place. I'll come back to those two issues later on. And the third angle, of course, is still there, still important, is process. It's not very popular in some industries to talk about process anymore, but I think it's still important. It's a sort of corporate memory. New engineers that come in place need something to look at, how we work, the process. And someone told me recently, only things that are documented can be improved, which is also true, I think. So the process. 3 ways of improving your testing. However, in preparing for my keynote, this talk, I was also looking outside of testing and saying, okay, is this good enough? How do we become excellent testers? Whatever excellent means, by the way, I have no clue what it means. How do we become good testers? And I came across a model which had the same term. It's called the AFQM Excellence Model. AFQM stands for European Foundation of Quality Management. It's a very European model. You can compare it, if that rings in a bell for you, to the Malcolm Baldrige Award, which is in US based. And it basically says, how can an organization become a top-class organization? And it mentions 5 what it calls enablers, things you need to do to become top class. There's again people, hey, we talked about that. There's process, we mentioned that. There is resources, let's compare that to tools. There's 2 things in addition. There is leadership and there's policy. So in my talk, I'll actually run by all these 5 enablers for you and say what I think about them. But the main message is already, if you want to become good at testing, excellent testers, excellent test organization, these are 5 things to consider. Leadership, policy, common vision, people aspects, process and tools. Leadership. It's probably something you can talk about for a day. It's probably something you can talk about at least for one full keynote. I only have 1 slide on this. And when I was making this slide, I thought back on my own career. And I've done many jobs, contracts, assignments. I worked in very many industries, in finance, in healthcare, in automotive, embedded software. And sometimes you are really successful. Meaning the project went well, testing did a good job, or we achieved some improvements. And if you think back on those assignments, those jobs, it really went well. You can also think, hang on, that's because that person was around. There was a manager, most of the times, that made the difference. A leader. And some names here come to mind. Jaap, very Dutch of course. Jos, Jamila, not so Dutch. Harry. These people make the difference. And it's on one way it's very sad that in trying to actually get to a higher level, you need a person. That's the way it is, I believe. A person that sets a common goal. A person says, I want to go somewhere, has a vision. So as a recommendation, if you are trying to improve your testing, or trying to go a higher level, talk to those guys, get them involved. And by the way, a leader is not someone who says, here's some money, here are resources, go and do it. No, a leader is someone who actually is involved. I'll give you a very simple example. I was involved in a TV project. This was Jos, by the way, second one on the list. And at some point we thought about it was a good idea to do code reviews. Okay, very boring, but code reviews work. We always had on Friday afternoon a progress meeting. Why? Because we were behind schedule. We could actually come back on Saturday and do some extra work. Makes sense. So quite often we would have a code review meeting on Saturday morning. Jos very often came in also on Saturday morning and would sit in the code review meeting. Not because he had anything to add on C or C++, to show he was committed. To show us, yes, you're doing it and I support this strongly. That's what I call a leader. These kinds of actions. And there's more examples like this from these people, Jaap, Jos, Jamila, Harry. But find them, talk to them, get them involved. By the way, sometimes leadership is within the test team, within the testers. If you have a great person, it could also play that role. Okay, leadership. Number one. Number two, and it follows on very automatically from leadership, is a common goal. If you want to improve your testing, then the first question I always have is, why? Is there a business need? Is there a problem? I've come across organizations that were doing test process improvement for 1 or 2 years already. And then you ask the question, so what are you trying to solve? What are you trying to do? Well, we're now trying to get to level 3. What? That's not a reason. But and in the long term, these organizations will not last for the process improvement projects. There needs to be a real driver, a business driver if you want. We have a problem with our customers. They're complaining with defects. Okay, that's a good reason. We're producing TV sets, and we make sure we will hit the Olympics and not be 2 weeks late. So we've got to reduce time to market. That's a good reason. So there needs to be a common goal, a policy. And I have one slide more in detail, the next one, where I talk a little bit more about test policy. Because I think it's very, very important to have one in place. And most people have no idea what I mean by a test policy, or what is meant by a test policy. And as stated already, the leadership will drive that. So what's the test policy? What could be in there? It helps quite often to have a sort of definition of testing. So what do you mean by testing? Of course you all know that, but your company doesn't know that. Your stakeholders have no clue what testing is. Is reviews part of testing? Question mark. So what is testing? And then quite often there are these statements. Here are some of them. To provide visibility regarding quality and outstanding risks of the process. To contribute, you can read them yourself. Now my first comment on a policy statement like this is it doesn't have any value. Why? These statements which are up there are very vague. In fact, you can use them in any organization. That's not a policy. That's not a clear goal where they want to go. They are just some statements you pick from a book, and you can go to a bank and say, this is our policy. And you go to an embedded software company and say, hey, this is our policy. Because the same statements apply everywhere. So for me, a checklist item for a test policy is, if you can take a statement from a policy without changing and put it somewhere else, and it's still valid, it's a bad policy. It needs to be specific. What is your goal? What are you trying to do? So what are examples? So this is vague, okay? You may want to talk about, I call them test targets. So if you want to improve product quality, what are typical issues? For instance, reliability. Then of course you need to develop skills for reliability testing. That doesn't happen overnight. You have to perhaps have a operational profiles organized. So what are key test targets? It may be that you have to comply to a standard. That's more concrete already, more tangible in your company. And not for one project, but the typical products you're developing, what are the key test targets? What are you aiming at as a tester? What is your added value here? Something on employees. A question mark to me. Is testing a career path in your company or not? I don't mind which one you choose. But it's good to have a vision. Say it's a career path, then let's define it. And there is something going on ISTQB you may have heard about, certification. That may be part of a policy. All our testers have ISTQB Foundation. And all our test managers have ISTQB Advanced Test Management. That makes sense. Now we have a vision. This is what I want to achieve. And this is ambition. You should not write down where you are today, but where you want to be in 2-3 years from now. Things like organization. How is testing organized? What level of independence do we want? If you're a test manager, do you have some say in component testing, yes or no? It's nice to have a discussion once with management and with other stakeholders, development, and then work accordingly in projects towards that. Some starting points on a test process, your test strategies perhaps, risk-based testing. What's the role of tools in your processes? This is going to be tangible, this is going to be a policy. And what does it mean for our customers? As I said already, this is more or less a vision for the future. We have a common goal, and these are enablers to go there. And finally, you should say something about, but how will we get there? So how are we going to tackle improvements? What are performance indicators? Are we going to use TMI or TPI next? Or will it be metrics based? Or will it be people based? I don't know. Whatever you choose. So the first one is leadership, common goal, which actually evolves into a test policy. And by the way, I very much like policies which are one page only. Why? Because you can print them on an A3 page, if you want, and put them on a wall near a coffee machine. People can talk about it, you can see it. Quite often I come across policies in organizations, I do assessments, I talk to management and say, is there a policy? Yeah, of course you have a policy. They go in the drawer, here's our policy. Later on I talk to testers, is there a test policy? No, never heard about it. So make sure everyone knows. Keep it simple. As already stated, performance indicators are important. Why? It's one of the mistakes I made in my career. Sometimes you're enthusiastic, you're getting somewhere, you think you're making progress, but you haven't got the facts to convince management. So you need to have some 1 or 2 performance indicators related to your goal or vision to show what you are achieving, to keep people motivated. And I know there are people around who say, oh, but metrics is hard and not reliable, and I know. But these people hardly ever have metrics. And we need to show something to management that is easy to use. And this is an example of one I used in a company. Let me just briefly explain. The colors are a bit different than on my slide, but that's okay. The second yellow bar, got to change this now. Yeah, the second yellow bar is basically represents the number of defects, percentage of defects we're finding in system testing. It's here called functional acceptance testing. Let's say system testing. And what we're trying to do in this organization is actually improve functional acceptance testing. So over 3 releases, we were clearly seeing that the percentage of defects we're finding was getting higher. It's a very simple metric. But being able to show that to management was also like, oh, this is what you're doing. Now I understand. Now I get involved. Now I'm committed. So we're getting towards our goal. Yes, we are. It's a very simple graph, and you can talk about it, and there are reasons for it, and you got to all true. But you have to have something like this. It's part of your policy. Show progress being made. Okay. Leadership policy. Now I'm getting to more of the, I would say, the engineering type of things. People issues. My view, and not only my view, is that the world is changing. The testing world is changing. Until a few years ago, you could be a tester, taking a testing course, being good at test design technique, perhaps risk analysis, some other things, defect reporting, and you were happy. You could play your role in the organization, you could play your part in a project. I'm sorry, these days are gone. Nowadays, a tester is expected to have a broader knowledge, to act, to be a player in a team. Whether it's called agile or typical waterfall, it's happening. Of course you need testing knowledge, we talked about it already. But it also needs some IT knowledge. Understand requirements. We are writing requirements sometimes. We are building test designs on requirements. Scripting knowledge, if you're more like the automation type of person, or at least be able to communicate with them, some basic knowledge there. Domain knowledge. You cannot function as a tester without domain knowledge. No, not possible. And again, an example of how you can build domain knowledge. I've worked a long time at Philips Healthcare. And what they did was a policy, again, policy, remember, 2 slides ago, to build domain knowledge, that every tester would be sent to hospital twice a year. Not because they're sick, it's a very healthy department, healthcare. But to go to a hospital and watch, to observe how their X-ray machine was being used in practice. That's building domain knowledge. And they come back, and then of course you're able to make much better test cases. If you do exploratory testing, you know how to approach things, because you know how your system is being used. Domain knowledge. It's very, very important, and more important. Remember, we're trying to become a Champions League player, right? Soft skills. You cannot just be a tester writing different reports and not communicating. It's all about communicating, it's making friends. Building relationships. Having the right mindset. Being able to present, to report. This is the new tester. The tester of 2013, if you want. Broaden your knowledge. Or, there's an alternative by the way, or specialize. There is still room for a specialized tester if you're very, very good at performance testing. Or very, very, very good at security testing. And knowledge like this is through training, through coaching, but also I like very much to exchange experiences. Working in a company recently, working with Agile, and they had a weekly test scrum. What that meant is that all the testers would come together for a short meeting, 15 minutes only, exchanging their experiences of the last week. That's great learning. And in the same company, by the way, they had a monthly test meeting, and then someone would actually present something he'd done on a project which he would share with his colleagues. For instance, I've done exploratory testing, session-based, and these are my experiences, how I did it. Wow, that's great. That's what we learn. Very practical. Or, another tester, I've applied classification trees. Wow, this is good. Very practical. Sharing experiences. It's not only sending people to a training course, hey, we're done. The opposite. A training course with no coaching, with no exchange of information is a waste of money. So people issues. Building good testers. Building better testers. Some other factors which you may want to recognize, not only about knowledge and skills, but job satisfaction, being recognized, feeling valued. Although I must say, this is also about earning respect. You earn respect by the way you communicate. You earn respect by the way you report. Defect reports, management reports. Career paths. Will stay in testing. Another one which is also very interesting, I think always, is team dynamics. It's very interesting, I think, to observe, and I've been around in IT many, many years, perhaps even too long, that teams are built, you know how? Upon availability. We need a test team here with 3 testers. Okay, who's available? Bang, bang, bang. We need an agile team? Okay, let's have a look. Who's available? Developer A, tester B, and that's how teams are built. However, you can also build teams based on all kinds of characteristics of people. Maybe build Belgian profiles, or Myers-Briggs, or things like that. Making effective teams, where one is actually a sort of a person who has a quality assurance view. Someone is a resource investigator, I call it, who can arrange things. Someone is a person who actually builds bridges. I was involved once in a project, again TV will, by the way, and we started the project off, and I was convinced this was going to be a total failure. Why? There was little knowledge in the team. Domain knowledge, but also engineering knowledge. Requirements were very, very poor. It was a multi-site project. We had an unexperienced project leader. This would fail, for certain. A year later, we delivered the quality product on time. And I said, but how on earth did it happen? And we analyzed that, sat together and say, and basically what happened is, we had the right team. The team worked together as a team. So there's a lot to be gained here as well. And my last slide on people issues is the following. This is a cartoon. I have no idea why you have this one in Malaysia as well. It's called Calimero. And Calimero is basically a little chick. Do you know Calimero? No. Okay, I'll explain what Calimero is. It's a little chick. He runs around the world and he always blames someone else. He's like, that's Calimero, right? They are big and I am small. That's not fair. And I was speaking to a manager once, and he said, you know what resembles testers? They're all Calimeros. I can't test this because I haven't got requirements. Yeah, but the tools are not ready, so I can't do anything. If this is your attitude, this is how you operate, don't expect people to take you seriously. And after having that conversation with the manager, I recognized there's quite a few people around. If there's no requirement, find another solution. We're going to test differently. Okay, that's what people like to hear. So, in addition to having the right skills, having the right knowledge, having career paths, all these other things, it's also about having the right attitude. And I know, for the countries I've worked in, there's quite a few people, especially in testing, who don't, and always blame other people. That's not how you become a testing center of excellence. That's not how you become a Champions League player. Don't expect someone else to solve all your problems. Act positively. Okay, leadership, policy, people. Of course, we need to talk about process as well, sorry, but that helps. So in addition, it helps to have a corporate memory. It helps to have, I don't call that, I know it's a very simple thing to say, but difficult, just enough process. It also helps if you're doing process improvement in testing or improved testing, to say, well, hang on. Are we actually ready for test process improvement or test improvement? I believe any organization can only spend X amount of money on improvement initiatives. It's not unlimited resources. And sometimes we're in a world where there are no requirements, or they are extremely poor. It's going to be difficult making test designs. Sometimes you're in a market where project planning is extremely poor and estimation is poor. It's going to be very difficult writing test plans. Sometimes you're in a market, a project, where configuration management is poor. And bugs keep on reappearing time after time. Good luck. I'm not going to be cutting mirror and saying, well, I can't test this, and no. What I could say, okay, we're doing improvement on testing. But instead of investing primarily in testing, perhaps we should invest some more money first, up front, in getting some basic fundamental processes in place. Because it helps us. And once that's done, you've got these constraints in place, it's good to look at a model. TPI Next is available as a model. TMI is a model. And these models are not spectacular, they're just a library of best practices. I always explain those models like, suppose you're doing a testing course, and you're doing an ICP advanced course, 5 days, test management. That's great stuff. And you come back home to your project, and you've got at least 30 ideas from this course. But you got no clue which one to do first. This is where these models help you. They put basically the best practice in a sort of order and say, well, if you're over here in maturity, then probably this is the best thing to do as the next step. That's what TMI does. That's what TPI Next does. Nothing more, nothing less if you want. Okay. An overview of the TMI, well, 4 or 5 process areas, levels, excuse me. By the way, do you know where there are 5 levels in TMI and CMI? I was once told this by people from the site. They said to me, there are 5 levels only, because managers can only count to 5. And what I meant by that is, if you choose a maturity model, a process model, it needs to be very, very simple on the high level. At one time, you have to present it to management. And you probably get 5-10 minutes in a meeting to get them on board. It needs to be a very simple model, at least at a high level. So 5 levels here again. Going from, you might say, the first step is actually going to detection, getting better at finding defects. I know people say we have to go for prevention, yeah, but you first have to learn how to find defects. That's level 2. And if you mature to a prevention-oriented organization. Different thing. I have one slide, by the way, on TMI, one more detailed slide, or one slide detailed. And in this case, I'm showing you level 2. And many of you would say, well, why level 2? That's boring stuff. We want to show level 5. This is great. Yeah, but not practical. There was a benchmark published not too long ago about where are the major test organizations? Where are we as a testing industry? 84% of testing is just level 1. So if you're actually doing TMI, if you're improving yourself and you become a level 2 organization, don't say, I'm only level 2. No, you're level 2. You're in the top 16% already. So what is level 2? It's basically about 5 issues. One is, hey, there he is again, the test policy. If you want to do improvement, do it from a vision, do it from a common policy, do it from a business driver, and the rest is being able to survive in projects. Test planning. Test planning means upfront thinking of how you're going to approach a problem. That's what test planning is about. And TMI doesn't say, take IEEE 829 and write a 30-page test plan. Which, by the way, I'm against anyway. I've seen agile projects writing a 1-page test approach or test plan, whatever they call it. That's good enough. But upfront thinking. How are we going to approach this problem? Where are the risks? How are we going to tackle those risks, mitigate those? And if we have a plan, we want to at least monitor if we work to plan. It could be very lightweight, it could be more strict depending on where you work. And of course, the core of testing is building test cases. It could be test charters in an exploratory world. You're still building something, test designs. And you want to be good at execution and finding defects, defect reporting. In hopefully an environment that looks a bit like the real life environment. There is, if you think about it, it always surprises me, this slide, there is nothing spectacular in level 2. Nothing. But 84% of the world is still level 1. There are times when I think we have conferences, and at conferences we talk about all these beautiful things. How beautiful the world is, where we have to go, and then we go back home and it's all a mess again. So it's good to actually work on the things that really matter. Take step 1 in your road to becoming a better player. So we talked about leadership, policy, people, process, and the 5th one we talked about, or mentioned already, is tools. Now, first of all, a warning, I don't consider myself to be, whatever that is, by the way, an expert in tools. I know there are tools, but that's about it. However, nevertheless, a few comments here. There was a saying 5 years ago. People said, improve and then look for a tool. What I meant is, first get your process in place, get people trained, and once you've done that, start looking for a tool. I think today, 2013, that has changed. The tools are much, much better. If you want to improve things, if you want to get better at testing, look for tools to support. So it's much more improve and tool. Another thing which is also mentioned, I think briefly by Lee yesterday, Agile world has changed the tool landscape. As a result of Agile, new tools have come around. Many more tools in component testing, unit testing are available. Coverage tools have become much better. There's regression testing tools, both at unit level and system level. There are different test management or project management tools, you might say. My recommendation is not to stick with the old tools if you're moving to a different way of working. It's changed. The third bullet, tool selection and implementation. What I mean by that is, recently I was involved in 2 projects, and both times I was surprised how they came about buying a tool without requirements, with no real business case. And of course, if you do it like that, you fail quite often. So my recommendation is still, it's very basic, I know, but if you want to do a tool, if you want to go for a tool, don't say, what's available, what is freeware, I'll just buy it and try it. Have a thorough selection and implementation process. It helps. What also helps is to look at what I call forgotten tools. Sometimes There are some simple tools around, easy to use, which make a difference. Again, an example, I was in a project where I was trying to implement test design techniques. In this case, decision tables. And we couldn't get the ball rolling, actually. We then found a very easy, lightweight decision table tool, which has a screenshot on there. And because there was a tool available, it became easier. You could just put in conditions, actions, it would actually generate a table for you, you could import it to Excel, and all of a sudden, it worked. So sometimes it's about very lightweight, easy tools, and not always about the big tool suites. So some would say recommendations on the tools. Giving you the 5 enablers of becoming a top-class player in testing. Now, the question then comes, but okay, I understand leadership, I understand policy, I understand tools, process, people, but what does it bring us? Any results? You have metrics for that? Sorry, metrics, data. Yeah. These are some data from real-life projects, organizations I've been involved in. Again, I think you need to be able to show this. Celebrate progress. Briefly going over them. The one on the left, I think. DDP. That means the percentage of defects being found, in this case by system testing, and not found by our customers, improving over the years. Mind you, over the years. If you want to improve, it's not something you've done in 3 months or 2 weeks. The second one, lead time reduction. So we're actually quicker in test execution. In this case, that was done very largely because testers were involved earlier, already in the requirements phase. We're advising or helping component testing. So the testing phase itself became, initially I think it was 19 weeks, and 4 years later, 5 weeks. Think about that. Time to market. Beating competitors to be earlier in the market. That's added value. Being able to estimate better, plan better. In some industries, that is vital. If you work in the consumer electronics industry, there is an Olympic Games coming up in, I think, 2016, if I'm correct. Is it? Yeah, it is. 2016 in Rio. If you want to launch a new TV set, you typically will launch that for the Olympics. People will buy it around it. So that means you have a time frame about 2 weeks to be in the store. That means you've got to be very, very good at planning. And again, there's some benefits. I've also got some measurements on people issues, like people are more happy and will stay with your company longer. There is less sick leave, so higher productivity. Results reported for doing things I'm just discussing. And if I'm allowed, I would like to do 2 more. Rob, is that good? Yeah? All right. Okay. There's 2 more slides to close off. Basically some wrap up and some recommendations. The first thing, if you want to do this, say, hey, I want to become better. I want to become a Premier League player. I want to play Champions League. I even want to be in the final. I want to win the cup. I want to be more happy as a tester. To get started means have a policy. There needs to be a common vision. Don't start using a model and then say, oh, we got a model, let's go. Wrong. What's the need? What's the business driver? Discuss that with stakeholders. Get management involved. Think about leadership. Is there a leader? Is there someone who drives that? And if you want to organize it and want to start it, this is a project. This is not something you do on Saturday afternoon, Friday afternoon. I've seen organizations say, oh, let's do it. We'll give everyone 4 hours a week. Doesn't make sense. Because projects tend to overrun. 4 hours ago, you're not getting anywhere. Organize this as a project with real resources, dedicated resources. Of course, maybe people coming in and out, that's okay. And also consider, is the development organization, your surroundings, you might say, ready for it? I just mentioned, if CM is still poor, perhaps it's better to first invest in CM, that's okay. If requirements engineering is poor, it may be beneficial to first invest a little bit in requirements engineering. That's okay. Getting started. Getting the job done. Very important. Of course there is a long-term goal. You want to improve whatever you want to improve. But also have short-term goals. If you start, the question is, what is different 3 months from now? Long-term goals, short-term goals, both in the plan. Also, when you're doing this, use what's available. Sometimes you have these big projects are coming up, and now all of a sudden we're going to be, I don't know, top-class players, and everything we did before was wrong. No way. You've been testing for many, many years already. So you must be doing something wrong. Sorry, right. So use what's available. By the way, if something which is already available is not being used, it's even more interesting. You can learn from that. It's always nice to have external consultants. They can help you along, bring a lot of knowledge, but they can never be responsible. There has to be a Mr. Test in your organization. You know? Stamp here, test. He's the one driving the process. He's the one who will stick. If Mr. Test is an external consultant who will leave 6 months from now, then it goes to the project. If you make improvements, institutionalize them. If you have new test career paths, go to your resource management. Make sure they are part of the overall program, things like that. And again, next one is one for an entire presentation, but consider change management skills and change management. This is about changing people's behavior. And of course, when you hear me, it's like, oh yes, this is all great. We have new people, processes, wow! There'll be a lot of resistance. Especially from Calimiros, by the way. I don't want to change. Same thing. And very important, everything you do needs to have added value. Don't do something because it's in a model or because it's in wherever. It needs to be done because it's in a policy. Because it added value for the business. Because it contributes to better product quality. Thank you very much.